This episode of JJ Meets World is brought to you by Natalie Deutsch of Hatch Realty. Natalie has a proven track record to get your home sold faster and for more money. She is consistently focused on her clients' needs and wants throughout the entire process and make sure that they are well taken care of. If you're looking to buy or sell, reach out to Natalie today. On average, Natalie sells a home every 3.74 days. That's at least 2 a week. And last year, Natalie earned her clients on average over $4,000 above list price on their homes. And you don't have to take our word for it. Here's some of the great reviews Natalie has received. I was overwhelmingly impressed with Natalie and all the Hatch team. She was very responsive and responded to all of the emails within an hour. She gave great advice and encouragement from the listing and pictures, the offer, and all the closing details. The marketing team knew exactly how to promote my property, and I was pleased by how soon and easily my property received an offer. I was actually dreading selling my condo, and Natalie did such an awesome job that I felt like I really didn't need to do anything. The thing I most appreciated was that she really listened to what I wanted to do and respected my decisions. I would definitely recommend Natalie and all the Hatch Realty team. They made this process so wonderful. That was from Diane. So listen, if you're in the mood to buy or sell a home, give Natalie a call right now. You can reach her at 701-388-9338. Natalie, Natalie, at hatchrealtyfm.com, or you can go to livefargomorehead.com. That's livefargomorehead.com and find out some information. Huge thanks to Natalie Deutsch of Hatch Realty for sponsoring JJ Meets World. Hello, podcast listener. You've stumbled onto an episode of JJ Meets World featuring Miss Britta Nelson, who talks all things food with Tucker and I. If you are not salivating within the first 10 minutes of this podcast, you'll be salivating by minute 11. That is a guarantee, all French style like that. Plus, Tucker and I are going to talk about his distaste of ham and why his great-grandmother ruined it for him. I talk about my least favorite condiments. Britta even gives you a recipe for something called chicken crack. There's so much in this episode that Tucker and I are not even going to do an intro. We're going to get right to the meat of it. You see what I did there? Also, while you're listening to this episode, head over to patreon.com and support this podcast, patreon.com/JJ Meets World.
1, 2, 3, 4. JJ Gordon, sort of like that Indiana Jones, in that he's always sniffing out his next adventure. Yes, he is. He's always interviewing guests so he can have them on his show and they can talk about pop culture, arts, and leisure. JJ has his flag unfurled and he likes his french fries curled, and he's fun and then he twirls as he goes to meet the world. He will march into the rain even if his ankle sprained. Take a peek inside his brain. This podcast is called JJ Meets World.
Welcome back to JJ Meets World, Britta Nelson.
Thank you.
This is your third appearance on the podcast?
I think it's actually now my 5th.
What? Oh, because you were at the 100th.
I was.
I forget that.
And then you forget about the Bible rap all the time, and the improv episode, and then my episode.
I don't really count the Bible rap. That was more of like a stop-in.
Here's a different way to phrase it. It has been since last time you were a guest on the show. That was over 100 episodes ago.
Right. Yeah, because I was like one of the first, right?
Yeah,
you're like
you were third or fourth.
Yeah,
and for a long time you held like the reign, like you were the most downloaded episode.
I know, and then you did one with Phil.
We talked about his divorce, and that one really
always stealing my thunder.
Don't worry, because I got a great idea for a new divorce podcast that I think I'm going to launch.
Oh,
but
perfect.
That's neither here nor there. Today's episode is going to involve food. So if you're not hungry yet, by the end of this podcast, you're going to be craving something. And I want to start off by talking about a piece of food from my childhood that still today is the most comforting thing for me to eat. The Pillsbury Corporation, in a roll, like a tube, makes these orange Danish rolls. Mm-hmm. And they've got cinnamon in the like little rings, and you put it in the oven. I like to bake them so they're still a little doughy inside. I don't like them to be all crispy. And then it's got this orange sauce that you put on top of them. I could eat 1 million of these things in one sitting. And if the devil takes my soul and that's my torture in hell, Bring it on, because I'm ready to eat 1,000,000 Pillsbury orange Danish rolls.
Would that be your last meal in prison?
Without a doubt.
Really
Yeah.
get on there, Britta.
Yeah. In fact, it's funny you bring that up because I was talking to somebody today about how I remember a movie or a television show that said, oh, did so-and-so pick their last meal? Yeah, they picked the McRib and Shamrock Shake, which is a really smart move because those two things are never available at the same limited time.
Raising Hope.
Is that what it's from?
I'm pretty sure, yeah. And then finally it happens and they're like, well,
Oh, there you go.
good thing she had that baby.
What do you like from your childhood? Like, what's your main comfort food, Britta?
Oh, man. So my grandma makes something called chop suey, which kind of seems like it's probably racist because it's like the most Lutheran thing ever. But it has
Yeah, I guess
water
so.
chestnuts in it, and it's like ground beef, some type of sauce. I don't even know. I should learn how to make it. And then you pour it over rice and it's kind of like a stir fry, like a mushy stir fry, but delicious. That's probably one like weird thing from my childhood that no one else makes. We're also like a Lutheran family, so lefse,
Yeah.
potato corv,
What?
things like that's like a potato sausage.
Ooh.
Good. It's good.
Do you make it at home or do you have a hookup?
We have a hookup.
I think that's the nice thing about food, right? Everyone's got a hookup for something. Like I got a hookup for the best beef jerky I've ever tasted. I have a hookup for the spiciest horseradish you'll ever taste.
Do butchers trade in jerky, or is jerky a different pursuit?
Oh, they trade in jerky. In fact, Britta and I had the pleasure of performing improv at the North Dakota Meat Processors Association.
What did that smell like?
So good.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
And so much equipment. Like it was like their
God.
conference. So all these like giant meat processing things, like huge slicers, big smokers. It's like a dream come true.
And like I told him, like, you can pay us in meat if you would like. And it was great because we got all the meat related humor. And then like we performed for the NDSU Meat Lab, which is the butcher course. You can get a degree in meat from NDSU. And so we got to perform for
They
them.
call it a degree in meat.
Sure.
Okay.
I got my brisket. I got my BA in brisket. and I got my PhD in pork loin.
Love
If not, that's what they should put on the website.
They should.
To get more people. It's amazing how many people sign up for that NDSU Meat Lab course, as well as they have a store up there. So you can actually go and you can buy these products that were butchered by NDSU students learning how to be butchers, and they're butchering livestock that they're growing in their own ag department. It is very, very interesting.
High quality meats. They do the smoked turkeys around Thanksgiving, but you got to get in there really quick and reserve one. And the prime rib around Christmas.
Oh, and the prime rib.
I think this just turned into a commercial for the NDC Meat Lab.
And Pillsbury. Britta's grandma's racist.
Speaking of great food things, though, with the NDSU Meat Lab, some of them put on the actual NDSU Barbecue Championships, which is one of JJ and I's other favorite things that happens every year that we got in on the ground floor for judging.
Britta is the only person to have judged every single year of this barbecue competition.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm in second place because she brought me in the next year. Thank God you did. It's funny because you'll receive an email and you're one of 20 people because there's roughly maybe 15 spots open.
Yep.
So you'll get this email and it'll be from Dr. Eric Berg at NDSU. We should have him on the podcast sometime. He'd be
I
great.
can't believe you haven't yet. Yeah.
I know.
Talk meats.
All the meats.
Meat talk.
So he says, I never get responses faster than are you available to judge on such and such date? And immediately there was a moment where I panicked thinking like, oh my God, did I schedule my wedding on the Saturday
Our
of
friend
the...
Jason Jacobson's wedding a few years ago was like the Saturday before, and we all got super nervous about it. Like, how are we going to make both of these work?
Oh, we had pretty much decided like, Jason, we can't wait to come to your reception. So here's an interesting food fact that we learned. So the NDSU barbecue boot camp or barbecue championship is a backyard style championship, which means that the rules are a little looser. The judges don't have to be certified in any way, shape, or form. It's pretty much whatever tastes best to you, and you judge on tenderness, presentation, right, is part of it.
Yeah, appearance and taste.
So I always thought when someone says these are really good ribs, what's something that you think of with really good ribs, Tucker?
Well, I think that they're going to pull off the bone real easy. It'll be nice and tender.
Nay.
Really?
That's
Means
that's
they're
an
overdone.
overcooked
Okay.
rib according to regulations. They're supposed to like pull off, but still have like you got to use some effort to get it off the bone.
Yeah.
The
It
bone
shouldn't-
should not slide out of it.
Right.
Why should it or should it not?
So when you cook ribs,
Uh-huh.
you can do low and slow and make them super tender. And it'd be the same as putting them in a crock pot, or like some people do, boiling them.
Got it.
And the bone coming off means that it's actually overdone, that the meat has separated itself completely from the bone. And we've just been taught by Big Restaurant that means they're so tender and they're so good. Well, yes, it should be tender, but it should have some give to it. Like you should have to, like Britta said, put some effort in.
It shouldn't be like oatmeal.
Right. It shouldn't be you should be a carnivore, right?
It's ribs. You don't want it to turn into pulled pork, right? Like the bone shouldn't be sliding out and everything separating. You should be able to bite it.
That's something that they tell us every year. And he goes, but if you love that taste of mushy pork, you can go for it. And it's really,
doesn't?
it's affected the way I eat ribs.
And the way you make ribs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I used to think, 4 hours on real slow so that you can just wiggle the bone right out. And I'm like, that's how you know you've made a good rib. But nay. nay. I have learned so many interesting things. It's funny because like my notes here are Pillsbury orange Danish rolls, barbecue championship, ribs should not fall off the bone. And then I only have one other thing, so this might be the shortest podcast we've done. We've already covered so many great things. Tucker, we didn't give you a chance to tell you about a food that you think of from your childhood that is comforting or means something to you.
So it's not homemade. It's from a restaurant called Gold Star Chili. And that's because, and I was first introduced to it because my dad's side of the family is in Kentucky. And so we would go there once a year to either do Christmas or some other thing. And so that was the one time a year where I got to try Gold Star Chili.
Cincinnati style chili is the way if you're looking for this. Now, for those folks out there who maybe have never heard of Cincinnati style chili,
It's basically just a really watery meat sauce with particular spices in it. It's probably the cheapest thing you could possibly make, right? It is absolutely bargain barrel as far as like the components of it.
I feel like,
man, it's tasty.
The person who invented Cincinnati style chili was like this. Oh God, I got to feed my family something. I got a third of this roast that's overdone. So why don't I do this? Why don't I just like simmer it for 4 days so it turns into little chunklets? But here's the thing that you're failing to mention. Cincinnati style chili is served over spaghetti commonly.
Yep.
Which is when you took me to a Gold Star for the first time, I'm like, what the hell is this?
It shouldn't be that big of a leap. It just looks like a brown sauce.
But it's
But
chili.
if you're going to get chili, you're not expecting spaghetti.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so then you can have it in ways. So like you can add beans. So the chili sauce itself is just the beef, the watery beef sauce.
Right.
And then you add beans to it if you want beans. You add onions if you want onions. You add cheese.
Yep.
And then they've got like oyster crackers, right? Is what they put over the top of it.
Yep. So, I mean, if I'm going to go with corporatized restaurant, favorite food would be that. But if it was like homemade, then it's dumplings, which is another Kentucky where Mama Luke would make it all the time. And that's where I would taste it.
Let me tell you a story about Tucker's grandma making dumplings. So the first time I got to visit Mama Luke, who we've talked about quite a few times on this podcast.
She's a very special person.
She made this chicken and dumplings, and I fell in love with it. It was one of the most delicious things I've ever tasted. And here's this little old lady working on the dumplings, and it takes you a whole day to make the dumplings. And
it's like she was just here.
yeah, right? It was amazing.
Such a
Mama
good
Luke?
impression.
You don't see this, but I'm also shaking my head quite a bit during that impression. So Mama Luke makes these dumplings, and they're amazing, and I dream of them. The next time I go to visit Mama Luke, I've gone vegetarian. I spent a summer where I did not.
Oh, yeah.
I forgot.
That's
about that.
right.
Yeah, and you know why I did that? Because someone told me there's no way you could last a
can't.
week.
Yeah.
And I was like, screw you. And then I did a whole summer. So when I went to visit Mama Luke, it sucked because I'm eating my Gold Star chili as just spaghetti noodles with some beans on top of them and cheese. That sucked. And then she makes.
We would have kept your secret, JJ.
I know.
Had you decided
What
to
happens
stray.
in Kentucky stays in Kentucky.
Mama Luke is OG. She would not betray you.
Have you ever gone a long stint without eating meat and then you eat it? It does something to your bowels that is unholy. Your body must not produce that bacteria you need to break down those
I do respect
like muscle
the risks
proteins.
of what you're talking about.
Yep.
I understand.
It's awful. It's awful. And I only know that because, excuse me, when I did decide to eat meat, Britta was the one who served me meat at the end of that summer, which we'll get into that next. So Mama Luke is making chicken and dumplings this next time. And I was like, oh, well, I can't eat that. So you know what I'll do is I'll go get like Morningstar sausage. And so I got these Morningstar. They look like bratwurst, and Morningstar is it's fake meat.
Right.
And then I thought, well, you know what else I'll do is I'll get this big thing of these fresh berries and all of this cool stuff so that like there's this fruit salad we can have. And so Mama Luke, she's like, JJ, don't worry, honey. I'll make your sausages for you. And then she respects the fact that I'm doing this, and that's great. And she goes, and I'll even make up this fruit salad for you. And I was like, thanks, Mama Luke. You're the best. So we sit down to eat dinner, and I am literally cutting into the sausage, and she's like, oh, I want to taste one of those. She goes, they look like they're pretty dry, so I cooked them in the chicken. And so I went like, can't eat my sausages. And I'm like, and the dumplings themselves are cooked in this chicken broth mixture, so I can't have the dumplings either.
No.
So then I'm like, well, at least I can have some of the fruit salad. So I reached for the fruit salad, and she goes, oh, I put a whole jar of mayonnaise to make this fruit salad together.
Your favorite.
And I was like, son of a bitch. God damn it. And so like, I believe I ate bread, and that's what I had for dinner was just bread.
You did that to yourself, JJ.
I did.
You placed yourself in that position.
And it's not like I can be like, I'm just going to run and go to Burger King
She's
real quick.
in her 90s, JJ. She can't remember.
She doesn't know what vegetarian
She
means.
probably just thought strictly like specifically meat, like a cut of meat
but
versus
like
animal
chicken broth
products.
isn't meat, it's broth.
Right, exactly. That's what she was thinking.
Mayo
She's
is
like,
not meat.
Mayo's not meat.
No.
It's cream based. It's like, dairy, right?
so when I finally decide I'm going to eat meat again, I go to the shittiest Mexican restaurant in Fargo.
Whoa.
Oh, it was bad because
No, I
Name it.
miss it.
Casa
doesn't
Ramos.
exist.
It is in the former Hooters location.
Agreed.
It is no longer in existence. The chicken burrito I ate was clearly canned chicken that they put into the burrito. Was it not? Am I correct?
You are not correct.
You're a
But it
liar.
does come out of a big garbage can after it's made.
Were you working there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
I worked
Britta was our
at
server.
Casa Ramos the whole time it was opened in Fargo, and didn't work there while it was closed for that deportation. I loved Casa Ramos food though. Like I miss it all the time. Mango's is close, but otherwise I don't think that there's a Mexican restaurant in Fargo that's as good as Casa Ramos was.
Oh,
also, I got
Mango's is
to
king.
work there and experience like the stuff that they made in the back that wasn't on the menu.
The stuff
which
that
is-
we gringos couldn't handle.
Yeah, which is probably why. And I was always taking like food home every night, big thing of rice. Like it was great. I loved that job.
You also, I believe, have some permanent burns on your body from that
I do
job.
on my stomach, which sounds weird, but so in any Mexican restaurant, the plate after it's all done up and made goes into an oven, right? That's why the plates are always hot. Careful, plate's hot.
I don't understand
Careful,
why.
hot plate.
Why can't you just
It's
put it
to-
on a room temperature plate?
It's to melt the cheese and stuff. So you get like a burrito and they put cheese on top. Well, it's got to go in the oven for that cheese to melt. And I think also the burrito sauce that they put on it is cold when they put it on it because it's in like the refrigerated containers.
It's in the Ortega bottles.
Yeah. Yep. And so, it was all garbage cans. Everything there was homemade. I'm not saying that it like maybe past expiration points. That wasn't my forte.
And they had to make so much, right? That
So
like
much.
storing them in garbage cans
You
only
really
made
don't
sense.
want to see the back of any restaurant.
No,
anywhere. You
yeah.
don't ever want to see what's
I
up
don't
back
think
there.
there's probably not a Mexican place in Fargo that does it differently.
You're not paying for the
so.
food as much as you are for the ignorance.
Yeah. I went to a famous Mexican restaurant in Fargo to do some kitchen work for them, and I was pretty amazed at the sea of microwaves that were in the back.
Oh, was this?
Don't even say it. Don't even say it. Don't even say it.
There were no microwaves at Casa Ramos, just a big oven. But then the plates would be super hot.
You guys want to get some Mexican after this?
Really good
I
at
wouldn't say
holding
no, I don't think.
multiple plates on my arm with hot pad holders. Like I could hold 3 plates on my arm and then like one in the other hand, take it to a table of 4, pass them all out. Well, there was this weird booth in one corner that was too close to the wall. And so I wasn't paying attention. I lifted my arm up too much and boiling hot burrito sauce got onto my shirt. My hands were full, so I couldn't pull my shirt away. And so I got the worst, like, boiling liquid burn on my stomach, which now is mostly, I can see where it is, but I don't think other people can, because that was a lot of years ago. My skin's, like, peeled with sunburns since then, so it's really gotten rid of that scar. Hurt so bad, though.
Do you wish that maybe the burn had been in the shape of something like the Mary Mother or the Batman symbol?
It was not. This was like, if anything, it looked like a sperm. So
Oh,
it was
yeah. Like there was like
Nice.
there was a big thing and then it
where
got smaller.
It's just a
'cause
roadmap.
It like dribbled right down, right? It's a horrible
What a
burn.
weird birthmark you got there.
I'm pretty happy I've never worked in food service.
Oh,
Just
really?
because of the horror stories that I hear, because of like the injuries and the shitty customers. Because
Yeah.
everyone goes to restaurants, right? So you get absolutely every type of person there. And I mean, I've eaten at a ton of restaurants in my life.
Right.
And so I've seen other people be absolutely horrible to the staff. And even like just the fact that you are really dependent on the generosity of the tables to how much money you're making that day just kills my soul a bit.
Yeah. At the same time, though, you can make a lot of money in a short amount of time.
Right.
So if you worked dinner rush, like you were going home with $100 in your pocket and tips like that, there's not other jobs that you make that much like extra income.
You
Not
know,
that it's extra because your paycheck is like $30.
if you worked at a gentleman's club and also served between your like stage
Shifts.
time, you could really clean house
I'm gonna write that down
as an option. Sorry, Britta's mom. So to me, so food obviously is deeply tied to emotions.
Yeah.
And it's deeply tied to both euphoria as well as depression. And I think that's one of the things when I started losing weight, when I went on Jenny Craig, I would have nights where I'd just be so depressed because all I want was the comfort of like chips and queso dip, or all I want is that Snickers bar. And by
That,
not
like,
allowing
dopamine
it,
surge in your brain,
Yeah.
basically.
and by not allowing myself to have it, it was really, that's where you test your, it's where you really test your
Well,
might.
that's what that is, right?
Diet Coke? Oh
Yeah,
yeah, that is a
absolutely.
100%. It's an addiction. I am addicted to
Gave it
Diet
up
Coke.
for a
Yep.
long time.
I know.
though.
And do you remember how much happier I was when I gave it up? Like I was such a good person. I was sleeping better.
I'm
Yeah.
back on the sauce with this Pepsi here, too. And this has not been helping anything lately.
Here's the thing. So this Diet Coke contains something, and I noticed there must be a new law because I've started noticing that on the back of the bottles, this is big. It's all in caps, and they make a big deal about it. Phenylketonurics contains
I think we found the episode
phenylalanine.
title.
Contains phenylalanine. Whatever that is must be really bad for you. And the Surgeon General must really be like, why are you drinking this still? But you know what? I don't mind if I do.
Because of the thing that's happening in your brain right now.
Yep. I know I've got a friend I used to do construction with who is sadly passed away at this point. He's an older guy. I think he was just like maybe in his mid 50s, but he told me he loves Diet Pepsi. And I was like, why do you love Diet Pepsi? He goes, I love the burn feeling you get from like the fizz on your throat. And he's like, makes me feel alive. And I was like, Kevin, that is messed up. But I think about that now. Whenever I feel the burn,
Just barely hanging
But
on, but
you-
at least I got this Pepsi.
You don't like the burn.
No.
Because you're a soda shaker.
I do. My favorite soda is when I open up a can of Diet Coke, leave it on my bedside table for the night, and then I drink room temperature flat Diet Coke the next day. It is an amazing taste to me. I love it. Also, side note.
We're
There-
like the same in that. If you're ever in a car on a road trip with JJ and I, we're both shaking our sodas.
Yeah.
We don't like fizzy pop. Super annoying.
It's also fun to challenge yourself. Like, I'm not going to let this fizz over.
yeah,
You know,
and
like
open
that-
it a little bit at a time. It's very satisfying.
So let me transition the conversation on this. So we've talked about some real foods from our childhood. Tell me a fake fictional food from movies, television, literature that you wish was real, that you could actually taste.
That's a really good question.
So, for example, Britta and I both massive fans of the Harry Potter universe, and they eat a lot of stuff in that I would like to try. For example, butter beer,
Yeah.
pumpkin juice.
Yeah. They have all these things for you to try at the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, but
And they do a fine job, but it's never quite the same.
Yeah. And also in the movies, it's like implied that the butterbeer is alcoholic,
Yeah.
and it's not at the parks.
Too bad they don't make an alcoholic
Well,
version.
you can get like a shot in it at one of the bars now, like in Diagon Alley, I think.
The Three Broomsticks? No, that's in
That's in Hogsmeade.
Hogsmeade. What's the one? Is it the
There is
Leaky
a-
Cauldron?
Oh, thank you. Yep, that's the one.
I think if it could maintain its properties, the spinach that Popeye eats, because that would be really handy.
Mhm.
So
Oh.
if a bully is really ruining your day and you got to strong arm them, you just suck some really watery looking spinach through your corncob pipe, and then you just spin your arm up like a windmill and you just punch the guy.
I've always wondered if Max Fleischer got money from one of like the ag groups to include that, because really it could have been any substance, right? It could have been like, give me some of that cocaine soda.
Right.
I mean, think of all the products that have been banned since then that he's like,
Well, I remember as a kid, like watching the cartoon and seeing him squirt the can of spinach up into the air and like into his mouth. And I didn't know what it was he was eating. I knew it was called spinach, but I didn't know what spinach looked like.
Right.
We never really ate it at home. And obviously it was canned spinach versus like just spinach leaves. And so to me, it looked kind of good because it looked kind of like a Play-Doh, I guess, or some other, like, you know how you look at uncooked bread dough? I want to just bite into that so bad, but I know it's not going to taste any good. But it looks like you just got to bite it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's kind of the same thing where also any cartoon that shows someone eating a drumstick, because it's just like solid white meat on a bone, and like the
No gristle, no weird parts
like
to
the
get
ribs you
around.
guys are saying are poorly made.
Yeah.
It just goes right off, right?
I love the smoked turkey legs you can get at the street fair in our town, the downtown Fargo street fair every year. But it has all those like tendons in it, or is that
And
what they
cartilage.
are? Yeah. And
Yeah.
so
I mean,
you can never, you can never
not
take the
machine
bite
separated.
that you want. Yeah.
It's not machine separated.
I have always wanted to take a full fish and stick it in my mouth and be able to pull out like where it's just the rib cage and the head left.
You try that. Let me know how it goes. How did JJ die? Oh, fishbone in the throat.
A lot of them too, not just one.
There is like this fisherman's product that I've seen on some of those like 1-800 infomercials, right? And it's for quickly deboning a fish. And it's basically just a pole that's about 2 to 3 feet tall with some like metal wires on it. And you just take the fish and you put its mouth at the top of it, and then you just ram it down this massive pole, and it just takes all of the bones out. And then you just have fish flesh.
I was gonna say,
at the
like,
very bottom.
does it like the fish doesn't stay together? It must all like kind of crumple around itself, right?
It's hard to tell because it's a video, right? And it's probably not something that's caught up. I haven't seen it anywhere else besides these commercials. So something tells me that it's probably a total scam.
Well,
right?
depending on the fish, like their bones are really tiny and easy to break. So
Especially
you're
if it's
gonna
like pike,
try to-
like pike bones are really brittle,
tiny.
really brittle.
and they're like little tiny slivers. So I can't imagine that something like that would get all the bones out. I feel like you'd eat it and there'd be a bunch of little shards like eating glass.
I also don't really fish so much that I'm like, God, if only I could clean these fish much faster than I've been doing. Every summer, at least once, I go to the lakes, I fish all weekend, and then I clean the fish, and then I cook it Sunday morning. And it's awesome. But I've got that once in my system every year. And then once I've done it, I'm like, I could not do that again.
Burn your clothes and just
I've
be done.
never cleaned a fish or like taken one even off a line. I've fished before. I've even been up to like Ballard's Resort to go.
But they do all the hard work for you.
They do. They even put the minnow on for you. It's wonderful. And then you get to come home with cleaned fillets.
That's not what I want.
It's not because you're a girl and you don't want to do that, because I've heard you do horrific things.
Oh, I have no problem like actually touching fish. It's more like I was going to say I don't like to kill animals, but that's not really it either.
What did you do in college?
Killed a lot of mice.
I mean, Britta is easily tougher than either you or me.
Oh, without a doubt.
There's no question that she could handle it.
I think it's a scarring thing, because there's a video that my parents have of my dad cleaning a fish when I was probably only like 3 years old. And I insisted that I wanted to come to like the cleaning shack because he had just caught this huge northern. And I was fascinated by it. I think in my head, I thought we were keeping it as a pet. And I didn't know what the shack was or what cleaning a fish meant. I was like, oh, we're going to give it a bath, right?
Right.
And my dad warned me a bunch of times. And it's just like me crying, watching, and being like, there's blood. You're hurting it, Daddy. While my dad just like continued and didn't like make me leave the room or anything. So I think that's why I have a problem with fish.
You know, I don't know how familiar you are with the movie Silence of the Lambs, but that's just like a Midwestern version of the story she tells of when the lambs all get slaughtered.
The lambs, they were screaming.
I'm surprised you didn't immediately say something from the Star Trek universe.
Well, that's the thing is I've been racking my brain for a dish that I could even recall, but there's nothing. I mean, they list all sorts of alien foods all the time, but I can't recall seeing anything that I thought looked delicious.
What if I opened
something
it up
that became
to beverages?
Even then, I can't really remember. I mean, in The Next Generation, they have synthahol. So alcohol that you drink that gets you intoxicated, but can be dismissed with like a quick like thing to your neck.
Ooh.
All the intoxicating elements of it, and there's like no hangovers, and you don't lose any brain cells or anything. So it's like they try to optimize alcohol as best they can, but according to Scotty, it doesn't taste the same as real alcohol. I would try synthahol.
To not have the hangover and stuff, I'd be okay to sacrifice some taste.
Right, absolutely. If I'm just trying to get messed up, and then knowing that in 1 second I could be totally sober again if I needed to.
That'd be a beautiful thing. I feel like there's probably somebody who is working on that in real life, but we're probably a ways away.
Yeah. What about Klingon blood wine?
I've never had it.
I know you haven't, but like, isn't that like something? Okay,
that
so
you
let me
want to try.
Yeah, Klingon blood wine.
If it was, I mean,
it's what Whoopi served on.
My guess, Guinan is her name. Guinan is her name. Does it actually contain actual Klingon blood?
No.
Why is it called?
If I remember, I believe it made Worf horny.
Why is it called blood wine then?
I don't know why we call it blood
Klingons,
sausage.
Because it's
got blood in it.
Because it's Klingons. I've long thought that there should be a crossover series between Star Trek: The Next Generation and
Bob's Burgers
and Law and Order SVU.
Oh.
So it'd be Star Trek SVU, and it would be on a starship, but specifically the department in security that deals with like sexual crimes. And that every time there was a new assault, they'd always go and profile Worf because everyone knows that Klingons are sexually aggressive. Mm-hmm. And it was just be the ins and outs of those days.
Why do you constantly talk to me? I have craved this since I was a little kid. I want to know what a doozer stick tastes like from Fraggle Rock.
What is it? Okay, what is a doozer
stick? So the
stick?
doozers are those little tiny green people who are constantly building. They're like engineers and construction masters, and they're really tiny, and they live in Fraggle Rock, and they're constantly building these things, and they build them out of what look like just clear plastic to like resin tubes, and they're maybe like 2 inches tall at a time, and everything is made out of these doozer sticks. The Fraggles love them. They're constantly like tearing off big pieces of skyscrapers and like chowing down on them, and they look amazing. And the doozers actually like the fact that the Fraggles eat them because it means that they can continue to build and build and build, because if there was no check or balance to that, they would just have these massive structures that they wouldn't be able to do anything with, and they'd fill up their space. So it's the symbiotic life between the Fraggle and the doozer. They don't say how they produce the doozer stick. It could be primarily cocaine. I don't know, but they look delicious.
Huh.
I would love to try a Flaming Moe.
Oh, yeah.
I would love to try a Flaming Moe, which is
With
basically just cough syrup, right?
Yeah. Crusty brand cough
so basically
syrup.
it'd be like Dimetap, which is delicious.
Set on fire.
Set on fire.
I wonder if you can have the Flaming Moe at
You certainly can. Yeah.
But it's not cough syrup.
No, I hope not. Scooby Snacks.
Isn't that just an implied that we're going to go get high and then eat?
No, they give them a Scooby Snack.
So it's an actual dog treat.
It's a dog biscuit, though, right?
They don't necessarily say that it is strictly a dog biscuit. They imply that it is dog biscuit, but
it's got to have some THC content to it, though, because that is the implication, right?
Yeah, that these guys are major. That the dog
specifically
and the,
the dog and
stoners.
Shaggy. Yeah,
yeah. Which no wonder they're always hungry. Any of the sandwiches that Shaggy ate in that animated series, you know, when they make a sandwich that's so big that somehow, like a big Dagwood sandwich. Oh,
you wish you could take a bite out of it, that your mouth could get that tall. But in cartoons, they make the whole thing and they eat it in one bite.
Yeah. Oh, how good did Porg look in the last Star Wars? Roasted Porg?
Adorable little penguin chickens.
Like when Chewie had like roasted that one up though, like didn't it look pretty good?
It did. It was very golden. You know what show I don't think I'd want to eat anything from? Game of Thrones.
Oh God, no.
Yeah, I haven't seen a single meal on that show that looked really tasty.
Good. It's all like medieval times. And I have a Game of Thrones cookbook, and there's not anything in it that I'm like, yeah, I want to make this.
Yeah, they have a lot of blood.
They eat a lot of stews and like dry bread.
No.
Gross.
In Lord of the Rings, they've got that elven bread.
Oh yeah.
Looks
like crackers.
Lidmus bread. I'm not pronouncing it correctly. Someone will correct us, but they have a bread that you only take one tiny bite of, and that will sustain you for like 2 days. And so they have
Lammas bread.
Lammas
bread.
You're closer than I got, for sure. But I wouldn't mind tasting what that's like. I bet it just tastes like a cracker.
That's what it looks like.
I bet it's very bland because like the MREs that the military had, meals ready to eat, were incredibly bland or incredibly salty.
So we all know those are based off of elven dishes of old.
Sure. I'm just saying, if something's going to sustain you and keep you alive, and that's the purpose of you eating it.
It never expires either, right? That's the point of it, is you can take it on long journeys.
Yeah, because people will sell crates of MREs on eBay, and they're not new. I did a play once where I had to open an MRE and eat it on stage. So we got a ton of them. So I was eating MREs in rehearsal, and I was gaining weight pretty quickly because those are like 5,000 calories.
Right. They're meant to sustain you.
Right. But the other thing is that you don't often know what's even in it until you open it. So I had these like boxes, and I would get used to the certain like sounds of some of them and go, oh, this one's going to, I like the stuff that's in this one. I don't know what's going to be in this one. But yeah, MREs, they're not satisfying as far as like, oh, that was delicious. But you definitely feel like you've eaten something once you finished it off.
Did you? So years ago, I was doing research on the Campbell's Corporation, and during World War II, one of the things that the U.S. government asked the Campbell Soup Company to figure out was a way that they could give soup to soldiers that would heat itself. And so they did a bunch of testing, and they eventually came up with a can design that, when exposed to oxygen, a chemical reaction would take place in the base of the can. So it was like a can within a can. But when you'd open it, this chemical reaction would take place, and it would cause like a surge of heat. And then the can itself would you'd have hot soup. Now, of course, sometimes it would get too hot and then people were burning themselves. But for the most part, it seemed to be a pretty decent experiment. The problem was it's just not cost efficient to send someone out with something like that heats itself. Campbell's would rather you buy a Campbell's brand soup heater or a pot.
Are you lonely? Come get Campbell's self-cooking soup. You can drink it in the shower.
Will your sister and brother-in-law not let you have a hot plate in the basement? Well, don't go home empty-handed today. I'd also like to try the roast beast from How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
We don't know what kind of beast it is, do we?
No, in fact, you never see anything that even alludes to what it could be.
There's something in me that's just saying it's some kind of pork or some sort of pig. It would be.
It looks like a red meat, though, to me, like when they roast it.
I can't remember the image of it, but if you'd said roast beast, I would probably think like a warthog or something, right?
Really?
Even though roast beef and beast are so close.
This is just what's in my heart, you guys. This
Yeah.
is just what I feel inside.
You never know.
To Tucker, a beast is something that's got a snout and
like horns. Yeah.
And little tusks coming out.
It's running around in the jungle.
So that's what your
Warthog.
nightmares are like, huh?
No. We haven't even scratched the surface of that, JJ.
How familiar are you guys with the movie Return to Oz,
Not at all.
the sequel to The Wizard of Oz?
It's been a while.
In that, there's a part where Dorothy Gale, played by Fazur, I think that's how you name Bulk, who later went on to be in The Craft and Waterboy.
Oh, Fairuza Balk.
Fairuza Balk.
Yep.
That's how you say it?
Yep.
Oh, I've been mispronouncing that name for decades.
Hate when that happens.
But they come upon this tree that instead of producing berries or an apple, produces lunch boxes. And so you open up a lunchbox, there's like a sandwich inside and like some chips. And it was like, what? This tree is producing lunch boxes?
Do you remember how you felt when you watched Richie Rich and saw he had his own McDonald's?
Literally, the line is, "You have your own McDonald's?" And then just as that's happening, as he's saying that line, big old fat Professor Keenbean is walking out with a giant tray of food saying, we're trying to analyze what's in the secret sauce. Very familiar with that moment.
I think carrots are gross. But when I see Bugs Bunny eat a carrot, I think it looks delicious. Why is that?
All kinds of carrots, like raw, cooked,
I'll
glazed.
eat. I like cooks carrots that are cooked in a stew.
Okay.
But beyond that, no.
Interesting.
Really? Like
Yeah.
candied carrots?
No. Gross. Raw
So-
carrots, no.
Here's the thing.
Pickled carrots?
No. Anything pickled, no.
Oh, I didn't know that.
What a shame.
Anti-pickle.
Very anti-pickle.
Yeah. He's not pro pickle.
Very anti-pickle.
So to me, I ate baby carrots for a long time, and then I ate a real carrot again, and I'm like, oh, that's right. These carrot sweepings pressed together into a nub
Yeah.
do not do justice to the taste of an actual like farm fresh carrot.
When we actually learned that lesson while pickling
Oh,
one time,
God.
you can't pickle baby carrots.
So Britta and I pickle every single year. In fact, I'm going to share the pickle recipe for our brine at the end of this podcast. And we put carrots into the batch, and you slice carrot and you use it as a way to jam the pickles in and keep them tight so they're not just free floating. And this year I was like, guys, why don't we try baby carrots, because that way we don't have to peel anything.
They're already all done.
Yeah.
So convenient.
And so we jarred a ton of baby carrots, and they just were awful.
They like turned to mush. It's bad.
Yeah, because they're pressed carrot sweepings.
Right. It's the leftovers. It's the refuse.
Yeah. So this is a good time to segue into this. Britta's a pretty phenomenal cook. That's not
For
only
a few things.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's really mastered the things that she's gone after.
I'm a
She's
big
no Julia
crock pot
Child.
person. That's my specialty, I think.
But I'm constantly pleased when you feed me.
That's so
So,
nice.
yeah.
So nice of you.
And like, it's a good thing my wife doesn't listen to this, because my wife is not a phenomenal cook. She's got a couple things she does well, but then a lot of things that she does poorly.
She makes a great cheese tray.
Oh my God. Her
Charcuterie.
charcuterie skills are like, you might as well not even bother if
It
she's
seems like
bringing
something that you'd buy that costs like $100.
I keep pushing her to do that as a side business, and
She
she's like,
should.
oh, I only do it because I like it. And I was like, listen, I'm working 9 jobs right now. You need to work more than one.
Do you do most of the cooking then?
I do a fair amount. Unfortunately, I don't think Jill and I have very different palates. So the things I like are not necessarily the things she likes. In fact, Britta and I actually have much similar palates, with the exception of hot dogs, because she loves them and I don't. But
you eat them in the bun away from the sink,
Yeah,
right?
I don't
okay.
eat the loose hot dog.
the sad, loose
In fact,
bachelor hot dog.
I never make myself hot dogs at home unless it's no, I still don't, because I'm never the one that like grills at a party either. That would be you or Phil doing that. I can honestly say that I don't think I've ever made myself a hot dog at home, but it's a treat that I love at like the movie theater, or if I'm at a restaurant, they have like gourmet hot dogs. You can bet I'm going to get one.
Britta goes to like a 9 a.m. or 10 a.m. showing every Friday of a major motion picture. And what do they have on the spit ready to go for her when she gets there?
dog.
At least a hot dog.
Breakfast hot dog.
Yep.
That's my name on the like our movie theater.
Breakfast hot dog?
Yeah, hot dogs for breakfast on our movie. What is that called? The movie poll thing where
yeah.
you're guessing the box office.
Yeah, the
Fantasy
See
movie
movie
league.
league.
That's what it is.
So I asked Britta to bring in some recipes of some of her favorite things, and so I would like to let her share those. So if you've got a pen and paper handy, now would be a keen time to grab it. What's the first recipe we're going to deal with?
I think we'll do the Nelson pork tacos.
Oh yeah!
So, and this is all of my recipes are very much, you can kind of eyeball it too. Like there's no exacts. But for the Nelson pork tacos, this is going to be like a whole day process because it's going to go in the crock pot to become shredded pork. So start it like in the morning, have pork tacos at night, or start it the night before and it'll be done the next morning. You're going to get 3 to 5 pounds of boneless pork shoulder trim the fat. And then you're going to poke little holes in that, and you're going to shove garlic cloves into each of those holes. You're going to make a pre-rub with salt, pepper, onion powder, cumin, and some minced garlic. You're going to rub that all around the pork shoulder. Then you're going to put the pork shoulder into a hot oiled pan, and just enough to get it brown on each side, because you want a little bit of that crispy.
Want that brown.
You're not going to get in the crock pot, right?
Yeah.
And then in the crock pot goes the pork, along with some more spices, 3 teaspoons of ground cumin, 1 teaspoon dried oregano, 3/4 teaspoon salt, 1/2 teaspoon pepper, a cup of orange juice or orange pineapple juice if you want to
Ooh, pineapple juice.
splash it up a little bit.
Mhm. Yeah, and it really adds a different flavor combination to it.
And then some fresh squeezed lime juice as well. And 2 chipotle chilies canned in adobo sauce, like from the can, drained and chopped. Put more in if you want it more spicy. Skip them if you don't like spice at all. Maybe add like some crushed red pepper or something instead, because they do have a bit of heat. It's going to cook for 8 hours on low. So if you do it overnight, that's usually what I do. And then I shred it the next morning and put it in the fridge for later, and then or back into the crock pot all day, depending on when you're eating it. I usually save a little bit of the liquid after it's done. Like I'll, drain it, but save some liquid because you don't want the pork to get dry if you're going to reheat it in the crock pot. It shreds super easily right in there. Plus all the garlic cloves that you've put in there will be mushy now and all deliciousness. And then I usually serve it on tortillas with, all your taco sides.
That does sound delicious.
Mm-hmm.
Oh
That
my
sounds
God.
absolutely
Doesn't that
delicious.
sound like the most amazing thing you've ever heard
That
of?
sounds like I really wish I had started that 4 hours ago at home. So that by
So
the time we're
now
done here, I
it
would go
be
home and have
perfect
that.
timing.
I'm excited to hear this because I've been planning on getting into crock pottery
Okay.
Oh,
yeah.
and to start cooking that way, because I'm trying to get better at like
Meal prepping.
Meal prepping, not necessarily for the health, but for the budgeting.
Yep.
For the money aspect
And this,
of it.
you can use the cheapest cut of pork for something like this
Right.
because it's anything that's going into a slow cooker, right? You want some of that fat on it, and you definitely don't need to spend the money. So it ends up being a cheap meal. It makes a lot. We've never ran out of pork tacos, and it's something that I usually bring to like a big gathering.
Right.
Like if we're all going someplace for a weekend, it's easy to take with to a hotel room in the crock pot because then you can just reheat it. Or if it's, a party at your house.
It also mixes well with apple pie. Not apple pie, the dessert, but apple pie, the boozy, ever clear treat.
So if we can take a quick detour on this point and just talk about party food.
Oh,
yeah.
sure.
Like what is the kind of food you want to see at a party if you're showing up? Like, let's say you walk into the party, you're like, I don't know if this party's going to be any good. Then you see the table, the food's there, and you go, this party is going to be awesome.
Awesome. Yeah. I for parties, I find that, especially if it's like something, if it's a little gathering where you're going to be like sitting down someplace, serve whatever, but if it's a bunch of people that are over and everyone's kind of mingling in multiple places, it's got to be easy eat stuff, right? I think tacos are fine, or anything that's like handheld. I love a good meat and cheese tray, a good charcuterie.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, love that. That's gotta be. I also love a veggie tray at a party because I think that snacking on veggies is good with all the booze I'm putting into my body. It makes me feel better about myself.
Can we also say another problem with the baby carrots is if you put baby carrots on and you buy the pre-made tray, undoubtedly they are the white coated dried out carrots. If you give me a dried out fruit or vegetable tray, you needn't have bothered. Just throwing that out there. Is there a party food that you really like?
Well, I'm always happy to see taco dip. Like someone's got like a pan.
Oh,
with
like the
sour,
7-layer.
The 7-layer taco dip.
Yeah.
Because anything that I can deliver to my mouth with a chip, I'm ready for. So I really like even just going to, if I go to a burrito place, getting a burrito bowl. Not necessarily because I'm like, oh, I want to avoid the carbs, but I really just want to eat it with chips out of a bowl. The other thing would be, this was always my favorite as a kid. Anytime there was like a big family event that we had to throw where we had to bring catering in or for whatever reason, my dad and my stepmom would typically get these really long sub sandwiches.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And then you'd have tons left over. And so you'd be eating leftover sub sandwiches for a couple of days. That rocked. That was fantastic.
We have that happen a lot at work, which is great. The leftover subs from some meeting.
Yep.
I also like meatballs. Like, I think meatballs are a good, easy, toothpickable food at parties.
So one of the things I really advocated for at my wedding was to have meatballs at the appetizer table, but to have a meatball flight.
It was phenomenal.
So that you could have barbecue meatballs, you could have maybe a sweeter meatball.
Really saved the wedding for me.
Did it? That was the thing. That was the thing that really brought it up.
I will say that your wedding, JJ, I don't think I've been to a wedding with more food or the options of food. Great quality. You really thought of everything.
So this is another example of my wife and I are on different spectrums when it comes to food because she was hemming and hawing about what we should have, and I was just
right. It was becoming a real trigger for some marital discord.
It was.
It really was.
I talked to both of you about it.
Yep.
And so I finally just said, listen, because she was like, I don't know, should we, have like a beef option and then this? And I was like, no, I want my wedding to be curated in some way. And maybe that's through the food. And so I was like, I want pie. She was adamant that pie was a stupid idea. It was the first thing to go on the dessert table?
Pie.
The pie. But I said, why don't we do this? Why don't we do a series of pot pies? We'll do a chicken pot pie, like a beef pot pie, and then a vegetarian pot pie. They'll serve it with these little biscuits on the top so that's a scoop and go food because I knew I didn't want to do a plated dinner. And I'm like, and our theme is harvest. So we'll do that. We'll do these like candied carrots that we know that you didn't have any of, Tucker.
Correct. But they were delicious.
But they were good. I knew I wanted to add deviled eggs in there because they're, I think, a classy. They're something from another era. I don't care for them because they have mustard in them.
They're very Midwestern.
They are.
Very Midwestern. The meatballs, I think they were like a spicy Asian teriyaki sauce. That was my jam.
That's
I basically just returned to the table for that over and over again.
Meatballs.
I want to give a shout out to Fargo Billiards and Gastropub because I went in there and kind of told them what we wanted. And then they said, okay, come back in a week. We went back in a week and they made a not just a sample, but like a platter of all of these dishes for 9 people to all taste test.
Wow.
So we were like, this, not that, these, da-da-da-da. I also get a lot of people to tell me that they love the fact that instead of putting just dried buns on the table, we put banana bread on the table. They're like, I was surprised. Opened that up, found some banana bread. Delicious.
I really dislike plated dinners at weddings.
I do too.
Me too, because they're mass produced.
Yep. Yeah.
They're not quality. And you
Something's dry.
Oh God.
It's not what you want. I love buffet style weddings. Then I can pick and choose what I want.
Yeah.
Don't serve me something that I'm not going to eat. Like if you get candied carrots on your plate.
Exactly. Candied bacon, yes. Candied carrots, no.
I would like to share a recipe that is kind of inside information. I don't know if
the Nelson pork tacos were inside information too.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Well,
but we're all friends here.
So
there's only the three of us and then a few thousand listening, but whatever.
It's okay.
The Dairy Queen that invented the Dilly Bar happens to be in Moorhead, Minnesota. It also happens to be one of only maybe like 2 or 3 Dairy Queens in the country that have this existing archaic contract with the Dairy Queen Corporation where they get to run it the way they want.
And we are working to get the owners on this show.
Yeah.
Oh, and you haven't yet? That surprises me.
Well, because they're so busy.
Yeah.
You waited too long. It's the wrong time of year. They're probably not even here in the winter, are they? I bet they go someplace on vacation.
They take off. So
Makes sense.
they have the best barbecue of any Dairy Queen on the planet. So most Dairy Queens do a barbecue with like a shredded beef. Theirs is a ground beef. I happen to have the recipe for the Dairy Queen barbecue.
Oh, is that going to make them not want to come on the show now because we're releasing one of their recipes?
I think they'll be fine. Also, you have to know that this is meant to feed a ton of people. So did either of you have the barbecues at my wedding? Because this is the recipe we used.
I think I did. I believe I did.
They were very good. They're served on like little tiny pretzel buns.
I just had meatballs on the brain though.
Meatballs, lots of meatballs.
Yeah.
So it starts with 10. This is the Dairy Queen barbecue, the Moorhead Dairy Queen barbecue recipe. 10 pounds hamburger. 10 pounds.
So, okay.
Damn.
Brown it and drain it. 5 teaspoons of salt. 5 teaspoons of onion salt. 8 teaspoons straight up sugar. 2 teaspoons of ground pepper. Now, I suggest the pre-ground pepper that you get, like the coarse ground stuff that you get at the store. If you're using a pepper grinder, I think it can be a little too big sometimes, like the chunks, and so you get all that. 8 teaspoons of vinegar, half a cup of mustard.
What?
1 cup ketchup. If you're using catsup, turn off this podcast and click unsubscribe. You and I have no business speaking. And 1 large can of tomato soup, roughly 51 ounces. And you mix all that together. And it's like you're going to put it in something and it's going to cook. And the longer you let it sit, so if you cook it on a Tuesday, you should be eating it on a Wednesday because it's one of those foods like a good chili that actually gets better the longer it's at a time.
What should people do to scale that down if they don't want to feed that? If they don't want to cook 10 pounds of ground
Half
beef?
it,
I
5
mean,
pounds?
yeah, even 5 pounds of hamburger.
It's a
would
lot.
say a
Well, that's
pound.
your do you have a device that can cook 10 pounds of beef over a day?
Think about this. You probably are using 3 frying pans to do that much.
Right, but then you said it's got to sit and stew.
Right,
like,
so-
where are you putting it?
So recently at my job, like once a year, you're given a certain amount of volunteer hours. If you go volunteer somewhere, you actually get paid to go do that. Excuse me.
That's nice.
So the company is basically volunteering, right? Mm-hmm. And so last year, my group and I, we went to the YWCA to work there. And the task I was given was to fry all the ground beef for the dinner that night. And so it was about 10 pounds, if I remember correctly. And it took up about half the size of the table we're at right now. So I'm trying to think of how else I could say this. I mean, you could have fit 3 pizza pans inside of that thing. And it was full to the brim with ground beef. So I would say scale it down to 1 pound. 1 pound will do you good.
I think 2 pounds.
Sure, let's go crazy. 2 pounds.
So
Or it depends on who you're making it for, right?
Here's the
if you're
thing.
doing easier math, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you go 2 pounds, you're talking about a fifth. I mean, if you're talking about cutting everything down to like a fifth, so 5 teaspoons of salt. Now you're only using 1 teaspoon of salt.
There you go.
There you go.
You've got 8 teaspoons of sugar and 8 teaspoons of vinegar, but I think that you probably figure that out.
Right.
There's great calculator apps
Yeah.
for like conversions like that nowadays.
But if you're feeding a big batch of people, that's a great way to feed a big batch of people. And it is so tasty. It's so good when it turns on. You go,
I can't believe that it has mustard on it and that you enjoy it.
Here's the thing, though. Think about 10 pounds.
And then the amount of mustard that goes in. It's like a splash.
It's a splash. And because the cooks at the gastropub were like, well, should we not include the mustard? Because I know you don't like mustard. I'm like, no, because I like these and they're tasty. I just don't want to know that there's mustard. It's like no one wants to know how the sausage gets made.
Nope.
You know, I just want to enjoy it, right?
Quoting Hamilton right
I
now.
was. But it's also, that was a
Which is
saying
ironic.
a long time
Yeah,
before
It's
Hamilton.
very ironic. Do you either of you remember the best meal you've ever had?
Yes.
What was it?
At the Lowry's Steakhouse in Chicago, they have the Diamond Jim prime rib. It is a giant piece of prime rib, and they carve it at your table. They have these roving like roast trucks, and they bring it to your table. They also do a thing called the famous spinning salad. They put a big metal bowl in this bed of ice, and they spin it so that it's spinning, and then that's when they pour in this like specialty made dressing, and so the spinning is how it kind of gets itself mixed together, which is awesome. It came with creamed spinach, creamed corn, a big baked potato, Yorkshire pudding. Oh my god, this meal it cost me probably like $80,
Sure.
but every bite was a taste sensation. And Lowry's, the restaurant, these are the people who bring you the seasoning salt, but they have a couple of restaurants across the country, one of them being in Chicago, is the only place you can get Lowry's pepper. It's house-made specialty pepper. Oh my god. It was so good.
Yeah.
It was so good. Oh, and I had the shrimp cocktail to begin with, and the shrimp looked like baby's arms. They were so big. Oh, they were good.
Baby arm shrimp. I don't think I can pick one meal that's my favorite. I guess I've never thought about that.
So you haven't experienced a meal where as you were eating it, you went, this is the best meal I've ever had.
I think it just keeps getting topped. Like right now in my head, the best meal that I've had is when I was at my parents' house and I made some Kraft mac and cheese, and my parents didn't have milk, so I put cream cheese in it, and it was the best meal I've had.
That actually sounds pretty good.
It's so good. I'll never make it a different way. Now at my own house, I never have boxes of Kraft mac and cheese, so as a special treat.
How much cream cheese did you put in?
I put a fourth of a block.
Okay.
Of cream cheese into it.
Instead of milk, so there's just no liquid.
I left a little bit of water in just to make sure that I could
Swish
dissolve the cheese powder.
But like the cream cheese melts itself.
It does,
Right.
yeah. It was so good.
I bet that
I
would be
ate
amazing.
the whole thing in one sitting. Normally I try to split it up into two.
Britta and I are brunch fanatics. In fact, she and I brunch quite often together.
Yeah.
And we found that one of the secrets that, like, say, a Granite City uses to make their, like, their hash brown. It's hash browns, but it's not really hash browns.
Yeah, cheesy potatoes.
Cheesy potatoes is they use cream cheese in it.
Ooh.
And so you don't get the super stringy nature of it, but that's what makes it so kind of
Cheesy and
glop and
delicious.
thick and
Right.
like, oh man.
Well, the best meal I ever had was in Las Vegas at Planet Hollywood, of all places.
Really?
And in Planet Hollywood, on like the second or third floor, there's a steakhouse called Strip House. Really fancy, really expensive place. And we were there on the company budget. So me and my 3 coworkers, we were allowed to just go for it, right? We weren't going to feel it in our own pocketbooks, which is good because my meal alone was probably $120. But for an appetizer, I had the calamari, which was great, right? Calamari, if you're in a high fancy place, the calamari is probably going to be good. But when it came to the steak, I had a 12-ounce filet mignon, which looks like it's going for $58 on this. But all of their steaks come with a peppercorn crust on them that they've made there. And I have never been so quiet while eating a meal or eaten so slowly because I'm a fast eater. And I savored this whole thing. We were quiet the entire meal. It was so transcendently good. And on the side of that, I had, for the very first time and only time ever, it was crisp goose fat potatoes.
Oh yeah.
Ooh,
Mhm.
Okay.
So I've never had it since then. But when I ate it, I thought, I've never tasted this before. This is phenomenal. And I need to go back there and try it again. And so I need to like save up and then just go out to Vegas just to have that meal again.
I think anything with goose fat or like duck confit is amazing. It takes it a million notches up.
I had a fancy ham party at my house not too long ago where I bought $100 like Imbico ham.
Imberico.
Is that what it is?
I don't think it's Imbico.
It's not. It's a beak
Leadless
ham.
bread.
And it's a slow aged, like air cured ham. And you slice it very, very thin, and that was okay. I mean, the first thing is like you get like 20 pounds of it, so it's a lot of ham. It's a lot of ham. They give you a special knife to slice it. But I also made a goose that night that I had, and that was my favorite thing that I had because I like dark meat, and goose is almost like completely dark meat, and it's got kind of like it's got a greasy flavor to it, but not in a greasy like bad way, like in a greasy good way.
Yeah, it was good. I was there for that dinner party.
And there was a charcuterie tray there, I believe.
All the cheeses.
There
was also a lot of cheese with the dinner too, like the baked brie.
Yep. I just made cheese on my own for the first time ever. I made mozzarella cheese and 2 burratas. Have you ever had a burrata?
Yes.
A burrata is like a dumpling, like an Asian dumpling for cheese. So it's a mozzarella outside, and what's inside is the unprocessed curd.
Okay.
And so when you cut it open, the inside should kind of look like not liquidy, but like that it's definitely not part of what the pouch is that's holding it in.
Right.
Oh my God. Making cheese was kind of worrisome at the beginning though, because I was like, well, if this cheese is bad, I'm going to end up with a ton of shitty cheese. Because it was 2 full gallons of whole milk is what I was curding up.
Ooh.
You were just talking about ham. For most of my childhood, I could not eat ham. I could not do it.
Were you raised by Orthodox?
No, it wasn't that I wasn't allowed to. Like, we had ham, but it grossed me out. And it was because when I was like 4 or 5, we were in Kentucky. And at the time, my great grandmother still lived on her own. And so we went to Mama Luke's mom's house, right? And she had cooked for us, and she was in her she was like in her mid-90s at this point. And you know, a really old person is really scary to a really young person.
Yes.
Like, because they're, you know, she spoke really loudly because she couldn't hear well at all. And, you know, her mind was going and the place was weird and smelly or what have you. But the thing that did it for me was we sat down to eat and she had cooked us a ham. And I remember sitting right across from her as she started carving up this ham. And I remember looking at her arms and they were frail, like pale white, dotted with marks and all these blue veins everywhere. And I had never seen veins like that before as a kid. And I'm watching them pulse while she's speaking way too loudly. Like no adult I know speaks this loudly or this harshly. And she's just like cutting into this ham.
I got this ham from the farmer.
It scared the fuck out of me as a kid. I was just like, oh, this is horrible. And so I could not eat ham without thinking about my great grandmother's gross arms.
Oh,
but I was able after a while to get past it as I grew up.
That's lucky because I'd be so sorry for you if you're missing out on ham.
Here's a JJ Meets World exclusive because I had vowed that this recipe was going to die with me and it was not going to get passed on to further generations. When my mom made ham, she also made a thing called onion goop, which was a ham sandwich topping.
And we brought this up before, but you did defend the secrecy of the recipe for sure.
So I'm going to share the recipe right now. Okay. So it's 2 cups of mayonnaise to 1 cup mustard and sliced onion. So not chopped onion. They should practically be in rings. Like it's big hunks of onion. You mix it together and it should be the color of like the McDonald's golden arches. Like it should be a deep color. And you're not putting good mustard in this. You're using like
French's
like a
yellow.
school bus. It should be like a school bus almost.
And so you can add a little bit more mustard for taste, but you put it on a ham sandwich with, you know, the ham that you made for Christmas 3 days and then you're eating 3 days later. To me, it's the most disgusting thing ever when my mom would make it. I couldn't even go in the kitchen because I'd be like, those are 2 of the things I hate the most, mustard and mayonnaise. And you are literally glopping them together. You know, it's like when at the end of Power Rangers, when like 2 of those clay things would come together and like it was awful.
Can we agree though that
they're putties?
The putties.
Can we agree though that ham is the least popular deli meat? Because any time that I'm at like a work function anywhere where someone has brought in Herberts and Gerberts or whatever, and they've got turkey sandwiches, roast beef sandwiches, and ham ham is always what's left over.
Yeah. I think if it was thick cut ham, I would take it though. Like if it was, you know how Hillshire Farms makes those like deli style, like, you know, or cutting board, I think is what they call it, like cutting board meats.
ham. Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
I would definitely go with that.
Do you think it's because it looks so much more like human flesh than other?
They do say that if like pig skin, pig flesh is the closest to human.
They
That is
practice
accurate.
tattooing on it.
They do. They also like that's how they measure like how far a bullet will go.
Yeah,
and
ballistics.
if, like if this vest is really bulletproof, they strap it around a dead pig.
The best condiment, go.
Ranch.
Mayo.
I
like mayo.
I like
You know,
ketchup.
I already want to change it because now I've had time to process
Oh,
it.
sure. Okay.
Chipotle mayo.
Gross. The best steak sauce. Now, first of all, if you're one of
A1.
those people who say good steak should require no sauce, I get
Yeah.
it. I agree. But you know what? Sometimes a flavor enhancer, sometimes you're cooking like a skirt steak and you need something to amp it up, or you're having a steak sandwich the next day. There is a steak house in Chicago called Smith & Walensky's. There's a couple of them across the country. They used to advertise a lot in air, like the magazines you'd get like on Delta, like
Air
Sky
travel.
Miles?
yeah,
Sky Mile.
not Sky Mile. Is that Sky Mile? That's what it's called.
Sky Mall.
Sky Mall.
It's not Sky Mall. It's the magazine that Delta makes, not the shopping.
Oh, I
Sky
didn't,
Mall is
I
how you shop
didn't renew
online.
my subscription, so I don't remember what it's
Anyway.
called.
They make a steak sauce that I spend $40 twice a year to ship to my home. They send you 3 bottles at a time, and it is glorious. It is so good. And it's like it's thick, and there are like chunks of things in it. Oh my god, it is amazing.
You said chunks a lot in this
I
episode.
like chunks. I like my food to be chunk based.
Chunks.
Do you get chunky peanut butter?
Nope.
See, you're a fraud.
Nope. No, I'll
Absolute
tell you.
fraud.
Because
Chunky peanut butter ruans the bread.
Yeah. No,
It's
it
doesn't.
It's unspreadable. It is unspreadable.
Your spreading technique is flawed.
Sorry.
okay, I think the gauntlet has been thrown.
JJ's
face
Yeah.
Be like, listen, bud. I mean, we all know if you're going to be putting chunky peanut butter on a piece of bread, you have to toast it first because that gives it the bread a little bit more.
You don't have to, but I
of
do
building.
like that because I like the meltiness it gives to the peanut butter.
Right. Me too. Britta, do you know what one of my favorite things is at a continental breakfast?
I mean,
Britta and I also have a lot of continental breakfasts together.
Is it like an English muffin with peanut butter?
No.
Is it a bagel with peanut butter?
No. Well, no. It's so I love a continental breakfast that has
You
bacon.
I was gonna say, do you make your own waffles?
So what I do is I take 2 pieces of bread, I toast them, I put peanut butter, and then I put bacon on top of it.
That would be amazing.
It's so good.
That would
'cause
be
it's-
amazing.
It's savory and it's sweet at the
Sweet.
same
Oh
time.
man, you just fixed continental breakfasts for me.
Yeah.
Because they're slim pickings for anything that you're going to get that's quality.
I also love the toaster you get to use at continental breakfast because it's either a traditional toaster, but it's an away toaster, so it's kind of fun.
and there's usually tongs with it.
Yeah.
Which I think is
Or-
important.
It's one of those conveyor belt
Yep.
motherfuckers.
Right, but-
and those are exciting.
But it's a mixed bag because then you got to watch out for who your continental breakfast compadres
Who might
are.
try and snag your
Snag it.
toast.
Or they're just going to have bad toasting etiquette, right? They're going to stand there for too long or take too much time.
I
I
hate
also
those
find
people.
with the conveyor belt one, like sometimes you have to have it go 2 passes.
But 2 passes is too much. It's like you need one and a half passes.
Yeah, somebody's not putting the temperature on this correctly.
Or they're shoving their bread in and it's pushing yours forward that extra couple of little like inches.
Does Quiznos exist anymore? Do we have one?
Not in Fargo. Is there still one in Detroit Lakes, like by Walmart? That's the last Quiznos I know of.
I just
The last
remember
of the
every time
Quiznos?
I ate at Quiznos, I remember going, God, why did I do that? That was a bad choice.
Because you know why is because they had that great ad campaign where it was just like the 2 eyes with the mouth and like eat a Quiznos, eat a Quiznos. Do you guys remember Blimpies?
Yes.
The Blimpie sub shop? They had the best pickles. Like you're out of this conversation.
Yeah, I am.
But Blimpie's
Completely.
pickles were legit.
Yeah.
And then we had cousin subs for a while.
Right. Cousin Subs was my favorite, but where it's gone now. So we just don't have it anymore, which makes me ultra sad.
Oh,
What is your favorite sub place in Fargo right now?
Grand Junction.
hot or cold subs?
Good. That's a really good question.
Thank you.
Let's go cold subs first.
Okay. Cold sub.
Smiling Moose.
Mm-hmm.
Probably. Yeah, Smiling Moose.
Cold
Warm
sub.
sub would be Grand Junction.
Used to be Barbara's, then it became First and Deli. They used to have the best cold sub.
Did they do subs though, or did they just do Sammy's?
They did. Well, you could get subs like to go, and sometimes they'd have sub bread.
Got it.
Because what makes it technically a submarine sandwich? Is it the elongated bread?
I think so.
Because it looks like
that's
a
what I'm
submarine,
thinking.
I would assume. Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
what I would say too.
Otherwise, it's just a sandwich.
Just a sandwich. Best cold sub.
I think my favorite cold is Firehouse.
They're good.
I've never had a cold sub from them, so I should try that.
Their Italian one, I forget what it's called, but that's my fave.
In Delaware, there's a place called Casapoulos, which is the meatiest sandwich I've ever had in my life. Meatiest sub, and it's loaded like with the oil and the vinegar that I really like. Jersey Mike's, their cold like Italian sub is awesome.
I gotta try it because their cheesesteak sucks.
Oh, so this is how I wanted to end this podcast. For those of you who don't know, Tucker is an aficionado when it comes to...
I'd say I've even gone beyond that at this point.
Yeah.
I'm an authority.
On cheesesteaks?
Yeah, my word is law.
I love it because Tucker reviews cheesesteaks, and he's not just reviewing the best, like, Pat's. Like, is that the name of the place that's in
Pat's King of Steaks,
Yeah, in Philly. He also is
right across the
reviewing,
street
like,
from Geno's.
Charlie's...
For a while, I had a rule that anytime I went to eat somewhere that offered a cheesesteak on the menu that I had never had before, I had to eat that next before I ate anything else. So yeah, I was racking up some good numbers on cheesesteaks, but the thing was I didn't really instigate that rule until after the last time I was in Philly. So I was in Fargo when I started doing that. And so I've only had what Tony Luke would say are just cheesesteaks and not Philly cheesesteak. Because a Philly cheesesteak is a cheesesteak that's made in Philadelphia, which makes sense to me.
Right.
But I've been surprised at how cheesesteak ignorant people are when you leave Philadelphia. Because people will, like, if I say, I'll order the cheesesteak, but no peppers, no mushroom. People will go, what are you doing? That's what a cheesesteak is. No, it's not.
The cheesesteak is the actual meat,
A cheesesteak is thinly sliced ribeye and then either cheese whiz or American cheese or provolone. And then Wit Whiz is like the you'd go up to the counter and you'd say, I'll take a Whiz Wit or a Whiz Without, which means a cheese whiz with onions or a cheese whiz without onions. I usually get an American Wit because I like the zestiness of the American cheese. It's the kind of cheese you want on a cheesesteak, which is typically less flavorful than other meats. But you get a good melt without them overdoing the cheese whiz, which can be easy to do since that's already in liquid form. And then I always get it with onions. And the bread is actually more important than any other item in the piece. And a lot of people don't realize that. And I had to stop doing my cheesesteak challenge to myself because it was affecting my health. And it was causing relationship discord with the person I was dating at the time.
Ooh.
And so I had to stop doing it. And I'm glad I'm not picking it back up, but I've had a few cheesesteaks since then and I haven't reviewed them. And the reason I haven't reviewed them is because they're from local Fargo vendors who I've had face-to-face conversations with. And I feel like I can't tell them how fucking awful their cheesesteaks are.
That is too bad.
Absolutely awful. So if you're going to be in town here and you want to get a good cheesesteak, I'd say go to Grand Junction. It's not a typical Philly because they flavor the meat with teriyaki sauce. Excuse me. And they'll just automatically put provolone on there unless you specify. But they've got the best bread in town.
Yeah.
You get the right person making it and you will not regret that cheesesteak. Everywhere else you can pass.
You guys, let's go get something to eat.
Sounds good to me.
All right.
What I'm thinking about.
Britta, thank you very much for coming in. I see you have another recipe there.
I do. Well, you told me to bring some.
So share another recipe.
Okay. Let's do another crockpot one since we'll
Excellent.
just stick
Wrap it
with
up with that.
Yeah. This is called drunken beef. You might be familiar with it. You might not. It's an easy another crockpot recipe. And this one usually served on sandwiches. It serves 6 to 8. You're going to get 4 pounds of beef rump roast. It's the best kind, the butt. 1 ounce package of dry onion soup mix, 2 teaspoons of sugar, 1 teaspoon dried oregano leaves, 10.5 ounces of condensed beef broth, 1 12-ounce can of beer, your choice, 2 garlic cloves minced. You put that all in the crock pot, cook it on low for about 8 hours when the beef starts to shred itself.
Do you have a beer suggestion?
Usually with this one, I like to use a light beer. You don't want to like put a Guinness in it.
So some like domestic-y.
Yep. Bud Light, whatever you're drinking.
Course.
Budweiser, Coors, Miller.
Will you please read your other recipe? Because I see what you brought and it's worth it just for the name.
This one?
Yeah.
Chicken crack?
Chicken crack.
I was wondering what you were laughing about.
Chicken crack.
Chicken crack is also another crockpot recipe.
And why is it called chicken crack?
Because it's so addictive.
And it ruins communities.
Also, another one to serve on sandwiches. This ingredient list will serve about 6. 2 or 3 pounds of boneless, skinless chicken breasts. They can be frozen. You can throw them right into the crock pot frozen. You don't have to thaw them. 2 8-ounce blocks of cream cheese. That makes everything better. 2 1-ounce packets of dry ranch seasoning. 8 ounces of bacon cooked and crumbled. You combine the chicken, cream cheese, and ranch. Cook on low for 6 to 8 hours. When that's done, you'll shred the chicken, add the bacon, serve and stir.
Now,
and serve.
I've had this on a bun. I've also used like potato chips as like
Yeah.
a food delivery method. I feel like chicken crack just does everything you need it to do and more.
Because it's very cream cheesy, so it's an excellent dip and it's also an excellent sandwich. It's also great just to spoon.
I love it when food has utility like that, right? It's like a Swiss Army knife of food.
Yep.
Yeah. I've got one last recipe I'd like to share because I feel like this is one of the things I do the best. Root beer chicken wings.
I was hoping you'd share this
Were you?
one. Yeah, this was going to be
okay,
one of
good.
my other things I like at a party.
He's read this one on the show
Right.
before, but this was over 100 episodes ago.
I
so.
think it's a good point to just grab this. Okay, so you're going to get a frozen bag of chicken wings. You're looking for the drums and legs, about 50. Go to Costco. Let them thaw in the fridge. You cannot cook them frozen. They've got to thaw. You're going to heat up your grill, and if you have it, a cast iron pan. You're going to need another pan, but a cast iron works really well on the grill. Throw the pan on the grill so that you have the pan on one side and then a hot rack on the other. You're going to combine these ingredients, and you're going to let them sit in the fridge for an hour. 1.5 cups ketchup, 1 20-ounce bottle of root beer. I suggest Barks because it has bite. 3 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce. Worcestershire sauce. Half a teaspoon onion powder, 1 tablespoon of minced garlic, half a lemon juiced. So you're just going to juice it in your palm on there. So you're going to combine the following, and then you're going to marinate those with the wing. You're going to use these as the marinade for the wings. 1/4 a cup of olive oil, half an orange, hand juiced, and you can zest the peel a little bit too. 1 tablespoon of ginger, zest as well. 1 tablespoon fine salt, 1 tablespoon finely ground black pepper, half a teaspoon vanilla extract. So you mix those together. You're going to spray your nonstick grill, and then you're going to put those wings on it. But high heat, about 3 minutes per side. And so then you're also going to take your root beer mixture that's been sitting in the fridge and put it in the cast iron skillet so it fills up the skillet and starts to bubble. And then you're going to give your wings a bath. So put them in the bath and let them cook in that pan. Let them simmer in that sauce about 12 minutes, and then pop them out real quick and finalize them on the grill so that that sauce gets a chance to caramelize. Boy, oh boy, root beer chicken wings. Your friends will thank you for them.
Mm-hmm.
And just to add, I want to put my recipe in here too. You can cook brats in a toaster oven.
Really?
It's a grease fire.
It's you got to poke holes in the brats first.
That is a pro tip.
Yeah.
That is a pro tip.
Yeah.
How do you, when you're cooking a hot dog, do you pierce the hot dog too?
I don't cook hot dogs. I don't buy those. I buy brats. I only buy hot dogs if they are the only food available at a sporting event, which I rarely attend. So almost never. But I have nothing against hot dogs.
I cut a T in the top of hot dogs. So like I use a little knife and like I push in, like 1/8 of an inch. And you might say, why do you do that? And it's like, well, that's the way my dad did it. And so I don't know why I do it. Right. It's just the way he's always done it. And so they like kind of flare out on the end. Mm-hmm. And Jill does not care for that.
I went through like a winter where pretty much I was cooking brats every day and in my toaster oven. And I think the method I ended up using was I'd use the broiler.
Were you single during this time or?
No.
Oh boy.
No, I wasn't. Life was great. So yeah, you'd cook it with the broiler and you poke holes in both sides of the brat. And then I let it sit there for 10 minutes and then I'd flip it and then I'd let it sit there for another 5. And then I'd turn the heat off and then I let it sit in there for another 5 because the juices that are still in there are cooking the inside of the brat. So just because you've stopped the heat doesn't mean you've stopped the cooking. And then by the time I'd let another 5 minutes go, it was totally cooked and it was also ready to eat. Like I wasn't so hot I couldn't bite into it right away.
Nothing like that telltale bing of
For
whatever,
brats.
Right.
of whatever the cooking method is.
The reason I know JJ would never eat them is my favorite condiments were both mayo and mustard at the same time.
On a brat?
They work really well together on a brat. Really well.
I have never put mayo on a brat or hot dog.
Put mayo and mustard on one at the same time. Try it.
Okay. I will.
Do yourself a favor.
I will. That sounds like it's right up my alley.
You are fucking gross. A huge thanks to Natalie Deutsch of Hatch Realty for sponsoring this podcast. Folks, if you're looking to buy or sell a home, contact Natalie Deutsch today because Natalie Deutsch is not only a previous podcast guest, she's somebody who's going to care enough to sell your property for top dollar. She's also going to find you the best price possible if you're purchasing a new home. Last year on average, Natalie earned her clients $4,000 over list price on their homes and sold them faster than the market average. On average, Natalie's selling a home every 3.74 days. That's 2 homes a week. Those numbers don't lie. Find out why Natalie is one of the top agents in this entire market. Get a hold of her today, Natalie at hatchrealtyfm.com. You can also call 701-388-9338 or go on to livefargomorehead.com. That's livefargomorehead.com. Read all of her amazing reviews and then listen to her episode of JJ Meets World. Thanks again to Natalie Deutsch of Hatch Realty. That's going to wrap it up for today's show. If you enjoyed this episode of JJ Meets World and would like to help us continue to produce 2 new episodes every week, you can donate to our Patreon. Check out patreon.com/JJ Meets World and donate today. Even as little as $1 a month can go a long way. Visit our website at www.jjmeetsworld.com or hit up our social media. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all the sites the kids are using these days. If you'd like to stay up to date on new episodes of JJ Meets World, you can find us on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, YouTube, or wherever you consume the podcast that you love. JJ Meets World is produced every week by Tucker Lucas. You can find out more about Tucker's work by checking out www.moonbasemaria.com. If you want to get in touch with your host with the most, go to linebenders.com and you can find direct contact info for JJ. I'm not against cannibalism because I always say, don't diss it till you try it.